There are new Kryptonites on the scene, and the Man of Steel has decided to test them on himself. That's the premise of the Black Label series, the Kryptonite Spectrum. It gives the world 4 new varieties of Kryptonite, or K. We've got purple, cobalt, speckled, and rainbow. The first issue tackles purple and also sets the stage and tone for the series. So, we're gonna take a look at it. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and I hope you like Kryptonite. If not, this may not be the series for you. This and Superman Unlimited. We're close to release time recording, so spoilers. As mentioned, the Kryptonite Spectrum is a Black Label series, which means it's taking place outside of the regular continuity unless something really takes off, and then they can always pull it in. This label also started off as being a more mature imprint, but that doesn't always hold time recording. This series has the same creative team as Ice Cream Man. So that's W. Maxwell Prince writing, Martin Morazzo on art, and Chris O'Halloran on colors. Ice Cream Man, for those not in the know, is a horror anthology series. It started off with your standard kind of one-shot ghoulish grisly fare, although there was always a bit of a layered contemplative edge even from the start. But as the series has progressed, it has changed and evolved in some ways and will often take times out to get fairly introspective. There can be features about the nature of creativity itself, or the potential ways genre fiction can create a disregard for real-world issues, specifically horror. It doesn't shy away from being high concept. Mileage varies in how that lands for people, and since it can be an issue-by-issue thing, it can also depend upon the issue. And so with that creative team in mind, some were wondering how much that tone is going to translate over to Superman, because the series marketing has really foregrounded that. This is very much a Superman story, although it does have a bit of a tinge of leading a tad higher concept. And the first issue lets you know that based on some of the terminology that's utilized right away. My home planet Krypton exploded before I gained object permanence. A world-ending Big Bang that killed everyone, including my birth parents. Jor-El, a scientist notorious for his wild ambition, and Lara Lorvan, a preternaturally gifted practitioner of cosmic botany. I was an infant, caterwauling, pink-cheeked, and absent the capacity to understand what Jor-El and Lara were so desperately scrambling to do in those heartbreaking final hours. Now, while Superman narrates or thinks this, he's going through the process of retrieving some kryptonite that's been discovered on a meteoroid. He sent some of his bots out. And while all that is going on, he's waxing poetic about his past, his relationship with his parents, and also the planet Earth itself. And right away, there's an underlying sincerity to the proceedings, and just the way that it's approaching Superman and his lore and history. I was given shelter and raised as human by a pair of modest farm folk, 2 of the kindest souls you'll find in this or any other universe. Rao bless Jonathan and Martha Kent. I call them Ma and Pa. The robots in this story, as one can see, are on the more robotic side, less the real body double duplicates of the Silver Age. But the fact that they are in play and in such large amounts is itself a very Silver Age thing. You're starting to see a bunch more Silver Age concepts be played with again, time of recording. The way they converse with him throughout the issue is very reminiscent of how they were speaking in the James Gunn Superman film, although the humor has a slightly different, less Gunn-esque tone. In general, a lot of the characterizations, even though they are different, line up in spirit with that film. So this comic could be a very good entry point for someone who, say, came off of that movie and was newer to Superman or just wanted to check something out, or someone who's looking for some more Superman. It's a good entry Superman comic. It goes over his origin, his power set, and it does so in a fun way that incorporates some of his iconic catchphrases, but it twists them around a little bit. I'm stronger than a locomotive, faster than a speeding bullet, can fly in the air like a bird or a plane. My eyes and ears are enhanced. I can see through things. X-ray vision shoots searing lasers from my pupils. Heat vision, and hear faint whispers from many miles away. Super hearing. He does list more of them. He doesn't forget his freeze breath. There's a catch though, as Bruce puts it. Every sentence has an asterisk. Just that casual way he mentions Bruce, it's indicating that they're close friends, and we'll see that they have been so for a long time. It's Bruce who Clark contacts to help him with the kryptonite that he's found. So in this way, the story is actually very reminiscent of the Search for Kryptonite, which was a Superman-Batman arc that ran from issues 44 to 49 in the 2003 Superman-Batman run. In that, Clark enlisted Bruce's help to rid the world of kryptonite. It did not work. It's too good of a plot device. Now, as for the Kryptonite Spectrum, it describes the kryptonites that are in play and what their effects are on Superman. It limits them to 4, and they are green, red, black, and gold. It defines red as making Superman angry, so going the more Smallville route, which has been the case for many comics, time of recording. It doesn't go the classic Silver Age route, where a red kryptonite could really do anything. The sky was the limit. Whatever the author needed it to do, it did. Black is described as splitting his brain in 2, rather than him going into being a good and bad version of himself, which to me was just interesting phrasing. It made it sound a tad more complex than it's usually presented. Gold and green stay the same as usual. Green hurts and poisons him, and gold takes away his powers. New colors of kryptonite. Luthor would be salivating if he knew. Luthor, of course, does know, and he's fuming that he didn't get there first. Also, the person he's berating is Dr. Emil Hamilton, usually of Star Labs, in this case working for Lex and not having a good time. Also, Lex in this art style looks especially crazed and obsessed. There's a nice detail in the panel where Lex is describing how he wants to know if the Kryptonite would kill Superman, or as he calls him, that preening primary colored cosmic immigrant, which is a nice pairing of the Silver Age's penchant for alliteration. But with the purple prose this creative team favors, and in that panel, Lex's eyes are so green, they're almost glowing like Kryptonite themselves. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, but either way, it really adds to the idea that Lex's whole being is geared towards hurting Superman, like it's actually oozing out of him. Batman is fighting Professor Pig in a sequence with a surprising amount of Charlotte's Web jokes when Superman calls him to ask for help. And the way their friendship is written, it's very fun. It's just so clearly well worn. The world's greatest detective. Or just an old friend who knows you very well. Bruce, if Lex or anyone were to get a hold of these. They then later flip this and mirror this when Superman is able to convince Bruce to help him. It does take some convincing. Intergalactic mystery, you're a super manipulator. Or just an old friend who knows you very, very well. Now, a decent amount of this issue is the build up to them testing the purple kryptonite. They build it up, so what happens when the moment finally arrives? Actually, something fairly unique and a bit metatextual. And it's also something the one has to suspend their disbelief a bit for, so in that way, it's a bit of a throwback to those classic Silver Age Kryptonite stories. I also just like that when the colors are mentioned, they're colored that way in the text. It's a nice little detail. Now, in terms of what it's done, it's making Superman hear and later see things out of sequence. Like, time is something he's no longer experiencing linearly, and you can see that because when that happens, those are in that purple color. Although there are a couple of exceptions, and one is when Batman holds up a calendar for him to look at, and it's a really cool effect because all the dates are just transposed. They're not where they're supposed to be. Also, look, Calendar Man sells calendars now. Maybe he's turned his life around. Now, inside the story, they describe this as Superman no longer experiencing things sequentially. Now, the word sequential being foregrounded is deliberate and significant, as sequential storytelling is more of a narrative descriptor and can be applied to comic books, the medium the story is being told in. And they are going to play with that, particularly in one panel where it really hits it home later on. But as it stands, the purple K is working in two ways. One is on Superman, and the other is on the reader. On Superman, it's how can he function and be effective when it seems like things, particularly in a fight with Solomon Grundy, are happening out of order. For the reader, it's an exercise in the importance of panel sequencing and of narrative flow and understanding. How much can the sequence be broken before it becomes incomprehensible? Can the reader piece together the fight and follow? Is it disorienting, or is the vibe and kinetic flow carry it through? Or does the reader go back and try and resequence it themselves? Which is something that Superman is himself trying to do. He's trying to put it together in order. This issue also highlights an aspect of Superman that isn't always played up, which is his intelligence. His ability to think things through. He's more than just an extremely strong power set. It manages to do this and yet maintain the balance of Batman and Lex still coming across as very intelligent in their own rights. Plus, with Lex, you have the added dash of him being a tad pretentious/arrogant, which really works well for his character. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. Grundy smash! Yes, precisely. I mean, who doesn't quote Yeats on the regular? That is a poet I can see Lex quoting a lot, and in all fairness, that line is from The Second Coming, which is a very famous poem by Yeats. It's been extensively studied, it's been quoted a lot in fiction in its own right, and based on the way that poem positions the importance of war and the transition of historical periods, we're gonna cliff notes that, but it is a very significant choice as it pertains to Lex and his potential worldview. Now, sometimes when it comes to the meta-ness, the story does push it a bit. For example, when Bruce describes Clark as hearing non-diegetic dialogue, that doesn't quite flow very naturally because it's very far from how most people speak, and so it comes across as very stilted. The context in which one would refer to non-diegetic dialogue would be about a narrative, particularly a film space. That's where you would hear it the most. Film, theater, those kind of things, because non-diegetic sound is something that is being heard outside of the universe. It's something that the characters in universe can't hear because it's not coming from in there. So for Bruce to be talking like that, it makes it seem like he is himself aware of potentially being in a comic book, although that may not be the intent, but it can be something that is a bit jarring compared to some of the other ways that metatextual elements are being handled inside of this work. With all that said, there are some panels where it really works, and one is this panel where Superman is trying to put everything back together. It looks like he's pulling all these little pages together and putting them on a bit of like a storyboard or a massive comic page, and it's really cool. It's framed as him trying to put these pieces together in his mind, and all against this purple tint, so you remember this is Purple K's fault. Now, as mentioned earlier, this story is at its core a throwback to a lot of those classic Red K issues, where Superman would encounter encounter kryptonite and it would do something to him, and it would last for 24, 48, or 72 hours. It depended upon the story. And because it could do anything, you could work through anything. So by the end of this issue, the first one has worn off, leaving them free and clear to explore cobalt, which they start to do a bit at the end. This story also has some underlying theming going on when it comes to Clark and his perception of home, and how that pertains to his relationship to kryptonite. He does in this story refer to Krypton as home, a nostalgia and yearning for a place he's never been, and frustration that the remnants of his home do him damage. They hurt him in a myriad of different ways, a physical manifestation of the way that he's trying to work through some of his complex feelings about Krypton in his mind. There was a flash forward panel in this issue where he saw Lex literally screaming, "Home hurts you," at him. Now, different comics have tackled this different ways, and the consensus tends to be that Earth is his home, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have some complex feelings about Krypton. In the Silver Age, he had occasion to visit Krypton a few times. There'd be time travel shenanigans or the like. There's even one story where he spent a significant amount of time with his parents as an adult. So you can play a lot with this in some interesting ways. Now, this is not all hidden. They discuss it inside of the issue itself. Destroy them? These are pieces of my home. And the creative team also talked about this extensively in the lead up to this series, which means I have quotes. It's been a while. Glorious quotes. Prince stated, "But Superman, the Kryptonite Spectrum, isn't just about the new kryptonites and the wacky things they do to supes. Martine, Chris, and I want to tell a bonkers story that also explores real human problems. These kryptonite shards are in fact pieces of Kal-El's home. It's his own home that hurts him. This idea that home hurts can also be applied to Batman, Wonder Woman, et al. So we're exploring that idea inside this framework of our usual experimental storytelling. Home can be traumatic, and yet there's no place quite like it, as Dorothy reminds us. Wizard of Oz reference. We're interrogating all this stuff within the bookends of something decidedly wacky and full of make your jaw drop Man of Tomorrow moments. It's what we do best, an admixture of sad, funny, and strange. And because it's Superman, happy." So that's the Kryptonite Spectrum #1. And also, I just want to highlight this Lex panel because I had nowhere else to put it and I really like them. The shaky posture, an uncharacteristic lack of absolute confidence. That lunatic, he's testing the kryptonites on himself. How dare Superman potentially injure himself? Only Lex can do that. This story has some very strong characterizations for some of the core characters, Superman, Batman, Lex. Once you veer out, it can be a mileage varies moment. I can see some particularly maybe not gelling with this depiction of Lois. It's one that is interesting, but it's not the typical Lois presentation in terms of what her concerns are and where she's at with her relationship with Superman. So for some, they may have preferred a bit more of a traditional depiction of those two. Now, on the whole, the series is a very strong blend of some Silver Age out there storytelling with a strong emotional core. And it does have an overall hopeful tone. So far, we're at issue 1. Now, of course, with all that said, it won't be for everyone. If one doesn't like kryptonite as a story concept or playing with it, then this may not be the work for them, although in all fairness, the title would have let them know that up front. The story is not hiding what it's about. For some, the verbosity or cadence of the dialogue may be off-putting. I can see some not connecting with the manner of speech. For me, it worked because it appeared to be happening to be treating the characters as intelligent and by proxy the audience, but mileage may vary. The art is very distinct. There's a bit of a quitely edge to the faces, and in general, that amount of lining and sharpness can be off-putting to some, or they can find unappealing, while others really feel that it's stark and adds this kind of sharp detail. So for some, it may compel, for others repel, and for some, it may depend on the scene. Some may feel that this topic and theme has just been explored already, and may not want to see it again, while for others, this could be a fun take, and something that showcases that the best parts of the Silver Age, the adventure and creativity that could be present under the adverse conditions of the code, can be implemented in a way that translates the contemporary era, and it can marry with different techniques of all kinds. So with all that said, I want to hear from you about the Kryptonite Spectrum. Please share all your thoughts down below. I love hearing them. While you're down there, please all the YouTube things. Like, subscribe, hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time to spend discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.